town of Haridwar, situated on the banks of the Ganga as it enters the plains of Uttar Pradesh. It makes a colorful first halt for pilgrims looking to travel to numerous shrines in the Garhwal Himalayas. It's a busy little town of ghats and markets, selling, among other things, the basic articles of spiritual pursuit. Priests and wise men abound, providing expertise on complex rituals. Many ashrams and temples offer night halts. But the real buzz of activity is around the heart of the town, the river Ganga. Moving upriver from Haridwar, one passes the town of Rishikesh. Temples get replaced by ashrams that run alongside the Ganga on the northern fringe of the Shivaliks. Among the most sacred places on the pilgrimage to Badrinath are the 5 confluences, or prayags, of the 7 rivers that form the Ganga. The holiest of these prayags, Dev Prayag, lies 70 kilometers upstream from Rishikesh. This dramatic meeting place of the Bhagirathi and the Alaknanda rivers is actually the point where the name Ganga is first used for the most loved river of India. At the junction of the Badrinath and Kedarnath roads lies the town of Rudraprayag. The town marks the meeting point of the Alaknanda and the Mandakini, the latter coming down from the temple at Kedarnath. Rudraprayag is also known as the place where the dreaded man-eating leopard was shot by Jim Corbett. Today, the wildlife here runs largely to groups of friendly monkeys. Not a particularly scenic spot is the town of Karanprayag, site of the 3rd famous confluence. Karanprayag is where the Alaknanda and the Pindar Ganga, which comes from the Pindari glacier, meet. It is said that Karan practiced austerities here. From here, the route begins to abandon the lesser ranges for the towering ramparts of the Himalayas. By far, the most frequented and popular shrine of pilgrimage in the valley of the Alaknanda is at Badrinath. This temple alone is annually visited by hundreds of thousands of pilgrims from all over the plains of India, seeking salvation from the ordinary and oneness with the Lord Vishnu, the preserver in Hindu mythology. Each year, the doors of the Badrinath temple are open to the pilgrims on an auspicious day at the beginning of May, when the snows have receded. A steady drone of chants and hymns fills the air as if to cleanse the atmosphere in anticipation of the big event. On the day of the opening of the kapat, the eager pilgrims start to line up from 4 in the morning and by the time the first rays of dawn hit the ridges of Mount Nilkant, which stands sentinel behind the temple, the line of pilgrims already stretches well out of Badrinath town. The main door is opened by the head priest, who has been away all winter, and there is much fanfare by the local bands and town residents. The uppermost reaches of the Garhwal Himalayas are called Kedarkhand. As one moves from the narrow, deep gorge of the Alaknanda to the broader, raging waters of the Mandakini river, one begins to understand why the region is called Kedarkhand, the abode of Shiva, the destroyer. The roadhead for Kedarnath Yatra is at the town of Gaurikund, known for its hot springs, where according to legend, Gauri or Parvati is said to have bathed. The steaming waters of the spring are the focal point of activity, as pilgrims and travellers on their way up or down take a relaxing dip. In season, the town comes alive, as hundreds, deposited by buses every day, prepare to trek along the Mandakini, over the 17 kilometers that separate Gaurikund from Kedarnath. The climb is fairly steep in parts, and travellers gear up for the journey ahead. The markets of Gaurikund are woolen sticks, woolens, provisions, carry bags, and other basics that would come in useful on the journey up to the abode of Shiva. The legend of the Panch Kedar begins with the battle of Kurukshetra, recounted in the Mahabharata, between the Kauravas and the Pandavas. The Pandavas, after killing the Kauravas, realized their sin and sought absolution. After a trip to Kashi, they were refused forgiveness by Mahadev, as Shiva is called there. Shiva left the area and led the Pandavas on an extensive chase through most of the Garhwal Himalayas. It was at Kedarnath that Shiva was finally traced. Working on the assumption that Shiva may have turned himself into a buffalo and was in the midst of the herd, Bhim waited until sunset, when the herd would return home. Then he straddled the valley as the buffaloes passed underneath. The astute Bhim knew that if Shiva had taken the form of a buffalo, he would not allow anyone to mount his back, even in this fashion. The buffalo that refused to pass was Shiva. Bhim grabbed Shiva just as he dove under the ground, and because he was strong, Bhim was able to hold on to part of Shiva. The hindquarters remained and are still worshipped at Kedarnath. The other parts re-emerged at the other temples of the Panch Kedar. The Raval, or head priest of the main Kedarnath temple, is considered to be the living embodiment of God. He conducts prayer rituals and bestows blessings on the pilgrims. After a tranquil morning at the temple, the visitor can turn his attention to the other manifestations of God, the towering Kedar peaks, glaciers, and vistas of snow that make up the scenery around Kedarnath temple. Moving down from Kedarnath at about 3,500 meters to near Sonprayag at around 2,000 meters, one witnesses marked changes in climate and topography. The harsh white blanket of snow is replaced by verdant green on the rolling hills. A short trek away from Sonprayag, a minor confluence of the Mandakini, is the temple of Triyugi Narayan. In fact, this entire region, from Jamnotri in the west to Badrinath and Joshimath in the east, and down to Rishikesh in the south, is replete with temples and pilgrimages, as no other in the subcontinent and perhaps in the world. The temple of Triyugi Narayan is a small and elegant structure, or rather, two structures fused together as one. The higher one at the back, a quaint mix of wood and stone, bespeaks a certain oriental influence. The lower one, in the foreground, is typical of the Garhwal hills, made of mud, stone and slate, and with a decorative facade. Though not part of the Panch Kedar, the five vital pilgrimages of Vaishnavites, Triyugi Narayan is still an important landmark for the pilgrim. The sacramental fire at the marriage of Shiva and Parvati continues to burn here. It is called Akhand Dhwani, or the never-ending fire. For night halts, there are dharamshalas and a few shops in the main bazaar. Around the temple are four ancient tanks named after Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra and Saraswati. Further down from Sonprayag, On the road leading to Rudraprayag and above the right bank of the Mandakini is Gupt Kashi. In front of the temple is a sacred tank called Manikarnika Kund, which corresponds to the Manikarnika Ghat at Varanasi. Here, as in Banaras, Shiva is worshipped as Vishwanath, and two underground streams representing the Jamuna and the Bhagirathi rivers feed the pool sacred to the god. This temple gives the town its name, Gupt Kashi, the invisible Banaras, just as Uttar Kashi on the Bhagirathi is Upper Banaras. Gupt Kashi and its environs has so many lingams that the saying Jitne Kankar Utne Shankar, as many stones so many Shivas, has become a proverb to describe its holiness. Opposite Gupt Kashi, on the left bank of the Mandakini, is Ukhimat, the winter seat of Kedarnath. Pilgrims from Kedarnath on their return pass through it, en route to Badrinath. Ukha, daughter of the demon king Banasur, is said to have done penance here. The Shiv Parvati temple at Ukhimat is one of the most beautiful in the region, and when Kedarnath becomes inaccessible due to snows in the winter, Shiva is worshipped here. A little way upstream from Ukhimat is Kalimat. The trek route that begins here branches off for Madh Maheshwar, Tungnath, Rudranath and Kalpeshwar, all part of the Panch Kedar. The temple at Kalimat stands to commemorate goddess Kali, who is said to have destroyed two demons, Shubh and Nishubh, here. The cult of Kali worship is strong in these parts, and ritual sacrifices to appease the goddess are still known to occur. Around the main Kali temple are many smaller shrines dedicated to local deities. Nature has been generous in bestowing the mountains of Garhwal with her bounties. The rivers, fed by countless mountain streams and waterfalls, have carved fertile valleys out of rocks. Many terraced fields slope into the Mandakini along its meandering path. Above the river, in the higher reaches of the Himalayas, flora and fauna abound. A variety of trees, from walnut, hazel and maple to fir, spruce and cedar, cover the hillsides. However, man is making his presence felt here in the worst possible sense. Commercial exploitation of forests, in Garhwal as in other hill states, is threatening to ravage the landscape and disrupt the fragile natural balance. The lofty eminence of Tungnath gives it a magic of its own. To get there or beyond, one passes through some of the most delightful temperate forests in the Garhwal Himalayas, home to the now endangered musk deer, a vision of what the world was really like before mankind began to strip it bare. The temple of Tungnath, at a little over 12,000 feet, is the highest shrine on the inner Himalayan range. It lies just below the Chandrashila peak. The priest here is a local man, whereas the other Kedar temples have South Indian priests, a tradition begun by Shankaracharya in the 8th century. Rivers, rocks, trees, plants and animals all play their part both in mythology and in everyday worship. The harmony is most evident in these remote places where God and mountain coexist.